How I think about Bali as a whole is almost the opposite of how I describe Thailand. It's model-like, where it's beautiful on the outside. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. It's set up for Instagram, but also like a model, when you meet them, sometimes they're a bit empty inside. And of course, not always. Like, we've interviewed some amazing people here on the Dirt Path already. Some people I've really connected with, gotten deep with. But it can feel a bit more materialistic here. It can feel a bit more performative is really the word that I use for Bali, where in Thailand, you kind of show up as you are, I feel.
It's really easy to be yourself here. I felt this really a lot in Koh Phangan. That's why I loved it. Overall, there's this beautiful pace and way of being that is really unique to Southeast Asia, where it allows you kind of be yourself and to live every day how you really want to and slow down.
Welcome back to the Dirt Path podcast. So you have entered into another one of our Wanders episodes. So that's where myself and my beautiful girlfriend, Paige, who we've both been nomads for 5 years, recently more on the dirt path of online entrepreneurship. We come on once a month and talk about what it's like on the dirt path. And some of our episodes, I would say, have been a bit more all over the place of what is going on now. But this one's going to be a little bit different, as we're really going to deep dive into more of a specific topic, which is our life in Asia. So we are coming up with ending about 4 or 5 months in Asia. We're right now in Bali. If you're not, I would definitely suggest watching the video. We've got our backs to the beautiful jungle here at our villa in Bali. There's some birds chirping, maybe you'll hear. There's some butterflies in the background. It's quite beautiful. And so we'll just be recapping our thoughts on being a digital nomad and living life in Asia, especially as online entrepreneurs. And so to give you guys a general sense, we came, and this was Paige's first time in Asia. We talked a little bit about the first impressions, if you want to listen to that episode. And we started in Chiang Mai for 1 month. We then went to the island in Thailand of Koh Phangan, and we ended up extending, so we're there for 2 months. And now we've been in Bali for about 5 weeks. We're coming at the end of our stay here. And again, living and working online the whole time. So we're going to be recapping basically this whole experience. But before we get into the individual destinations and the best and worst parts of those, we kind of wanted to set the stage of the general lifestyle differences and the general things of being a digital nomad in Asia, especially with these, as they're kind of similar in a lot of ways. And they've all been like nomad hubs, which has been really great. So maybe first, Paige, we talk about one of the biggest and obvious things, especially if you're like us, where you're an entrepreneur or you work in a 9 to 5 and you have either you're working for a US company or you have US clients. It's one of the most biggest things and hardest things to deal with is time zones. Paige, what comes to mind when you think about being in Asia with the time zone differences?
Yeah, I think it is worth noting what you're doing for work. I think that when I started my nomading journey, it's been 5 years for both of us. The first 3 years, I was working for a company. And so Asia was not on my radar at all. So there are certain locations that I think are best depending on the type of work that you're doing. For myself, I had flexibility, but I was working in sales for US-based companies. So it was in my own best interest for a company. Also, my company was all pretty much living and working in the US to not be in Asia. And so for some context of why I'm here now is I have my own company. You have your own company now. So it's this ultimate time freedom to choose. I want to be in Asia. If you're listening and you're working for a US-based company, I think it's worth really, really noting what are the locations I want to go to first. So time zone, incredibly important. That's what comes to mind first is like, okay, what type of remote work am I doing? And what time zone suits my work best if, again, you're traveling while working?
Yeah, it's a great point. So last time I was in Asia, it was about 4 years ago. I was an electrical engineer, and was quite rare. It was in traditional industry, but I was able to really work on my own time, except for my meetings. My meetings, I had one a week, which would be at midnight, and ad hoc after that. Sometimes I would be pretty much on my own time for the whole week, except for that one meeting. Other days, it would be every single day. I'm up till 3, 4 in the morning. If you are in a 9 to 5 and you want to hear more of that, I would check out one of our recent episodes with Stephanie, who was recently in Asia as a 9 to 5er. And so she talked about, she was up till 3 in the morning kind of each day. So for online entrepreneurs, though, it is a bit different because we can change our schedules, but we're also dictated by our clients for calls and different things, and also just for family, like keeping up with family and different relationships. And so I would say for us, it's been difficult in terms of, whether you're doing family or client call, it's going to be at the beginning or the end of your day. And now I'm one of those persons that I don't love waking up and going straight to work. I also don't love going to, doing work and then going to bed. It takes me a long time to calm down before doing that. But that is what we have to do for the client calls. I will say the one thing for us this time that kind of ended up working out well is when we started here, I didn't have my business. I was doing the podcast, which didn't require calls, and I could do that on my own time. And then I later started my business, and I've just been doing more client calls. So it's been more of a building phase. And I think that's really important to note on, because maybe you're an entrepreneur that, does go in cycles. If you're in more of a building phase, I think Asia is actually awesome for that, because you have so much focus time. And then there's little time of you're going to be talking with other people and coordinating. The wind just picked up a little bit here. And so for you as well, Paige, like you've been doing this for over a year, but it ended up being more of a building phase for you, which I think really did work out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think knowing what time zone your clients are in, because maybe you're not from the US, but your clients are based in the US, or maybe you are in the US, but you're open to working with someone anywhere in the world. I think, though, as digital nomads, picking your environment and your location, again, if your intention is to work based on, where you do feel best, but also where it makes sense for your clients as well to have the most overlap with them, if it is a spot where you are connecting and talking live to each other too. But I think, that's the interesting part about time zones, is also the time of day that you work best. For example, I started my nomad journey in Hawaii, so I was working early in the morning. And for some, I think that's the best thing in the world, to start at 4 or 5 a.m. and then be done with your whole workday by 11 a.m. To a early bird morning person, I think is amazing. For me, I'm not. So that was incredibly against the grain of what naturally my energy works with. So as a nomad, you can pick your location based on your creativity, based on how you work best, based on when your clients are there. So it can be this calculated choice. And vice versa, when I worked in Europe or in South Africa, I wasn't working in my mornings, and that was actually amazing for me. I could sleep in, no alarm, have my whole day start around 2 or 3 p.m. And for me, that worked really well to work in the second half of my day. For someone who has energy in the morning, that might be like their worst nightmare. Like, I have to start working at 3 when my energy is at 7 a.m. So time zones can be incredibly important to make yourself even more productive. Yeah.
So for you, Paige, with time zones, is that something that in certain times of your work and depending on what you're doing, you would not come to Asia because of it?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I have a live cohort, for example, August, the next 3-month cohort, I'm meeting people live bi-weekly. It's going to be best to have the most overlap for my energy in terms of not having a call 7 a.m., 11 p.m. It's super doable, but also as a coach and holding space, I like to prioritize feeling my best, which is normally right in the middle of my day, not necessarily really early or really late. Yeah.
And so that's probably the most difficult part, and just the reality of living in Asia, coming from the West with time zones, whether your clients are based there or you're working the 9 to 5. That's the toughest part for sure. The best part, I would say, especially Southeast Asia, especially the destinations that we've been, is the affordability. So I want to paint a picture for people. And when we were in Koh Phangan, which I would say is not the cheapest place by far, but we had a bungalow, a private bungalow with about 10 minutes walking to the beach. And so a price of an average day of kind of living a normal, I would say, life for us. So again, we have a private bungalow just to ourselves. We can walk 10 minutes to the beach. I would go to a co-working space every day, which was on the beach. We would do breakfast at home, go to the gym, get a coffee on the way to the co-working, go out and walk to a lunch spot, like a local lunch spot, sunset walk on the beach, and do a dinner at also a local spot near us. And when I calculated it one day, what everything was with the per night of the housing, the coffee, the breakfast, the lunch, the dinner, the gym, the co-working space, that was all about $35. And so, yes, there's definitely days that are more expensive than that. There's also days that are cheaper than that, which is kind of crazy. And that wasn't even the cheapest destination of all the three. So that is obviously the biggest and starkest difference, because it's kind of hard to breathe sometimes in the US for less than $35. I mean, you're from Boston. If you just go into Boston and pay for parking for a day, it's going to be more than $35. So especially for us, we're still in the building phase. You're a year into your business. I just started. That's obviously the biggest pull to Southeast Asia, especially as a digital nomad.
Yeah, and two, how far your money goes in terms of what you like to do as well, I would say. For me, destinations I typically live in too, the activities I enjoy so much, and there's not necessarily a cost to it. Some locations, I would say you have to pay to get into that. Beaches in the US can be $35 to go to the beach. Beaches in Thailand, there's no fee to enter. And so too, it's like, what hobbies do I like to do? Is there a price tag that's making you do them less as well? Maybe some hikes in the US you pay to get into them. Maybe certain foods that you like we were having salad, like a local salad and a protein every day. That type of food, maybe you could get fast food, not even anymore at that cost. But if you wanted to go to a veggie, salad, healthy smoothie place in the US at the caliber of what we like, is at the same cost. So I think it's also the balance of, maybe you could try to budget $35 in the US, but are you living the lifestyle that you want to at that cost? Yes or no?
Yeah, I don't know a few places that you'd be able to do that, all of that in the US, unless you're really like cutting down on a lot of things. And that is the biggest pull to Southeast Asia. That's why there's so many different digital nomad hubs in Southeast Asia. It's why so many people come here. It's why I would say a lot of people, even from the US, with the difficulty that it is with the time zones, come, because what our next topic is the quality of life. You can increase so much.
Mm-hmm.
At each place, we've had our own private spot. Again, paying less than we are for rent when we are in the US by a significant margin, usually. And we can have, like this, a beautiful, beautiful spot here in Bali facing the jungle. Going to some like the nicest gyms with the cold plunge and all these extra amenities. Being able to eat quality food, go to the best beaches. And so the day-to-day life that you can live, even if you're still trying to save money, you're going to save money here and still live kind of your ideal lifestyle. Where in the US, you really kind of have to choose is, okay, do I want to go to the gym with the spa and with all these other things? Or do I save money to get to my next goal? Is here you can actually have it both.
Yeah. Something that's interesting too is some locations when nomading, you actually save money not grocery shopping in a certain way, because groceries can sometimes be more expensive, whereas like local spots to eat, all said and done, you get all the veggies, you get all the spices, you get this, you get all the ingredients. In the US, it's a no-brainer. If you eat out, it's going to be double, triple, 4 times what you're spending to cook in. So cooking in is just like the go-to. Whereas some locations, getting groceries is actually more expensive. So to cook is a desire and a choice because you want to cook, not because it's less expensive.
Yeah, and I'm somebody who loves to cook. Usually when I go
Yeah.
places, I pick a place because it has a really nice kitchen. And here we do have a nice outdoor kitchen, but we've pretty much only been cooking breakfasts. Which today, like we go out to one of the bougie cafes, and we each have like a main entree, really really nice. You have a drink, we get like a dessert that's affogato and stuff like this. I think the total I calculated was about $13-14 total for the both of us for all of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, what Paige said is it is in Southeast Asia. It's kind of a weird lifestyle switch. Sometimes, especially if you're trying to go to the nicer grocery stores, it actually, like in Thailand, for example, I would go to the gourmet grocery store because I love shopping and I love doing that stuff, but it would end up being more than if we just go to a place around the corner. So that is a big lifestyle change. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Even for me, I love to cook. I'm only cooking maybe once a day, sometimes less. When we go back to the US, it's going to be the flipped, right?
Right.
When we go to the US, we're going out once or twice a week. And cooking every other day because that's hundreds of dollars of difference.
Right. Yeah, the other thing too, especially I've noticed in Thailand and Bali, is you can take care of yourself better when the cost of massages are lower, the cost of I mean, I don't personally get my nails done, but I know a lot of gals who will go get pedicures and manicures way more than they would back in their home country because it's more affordable. So you develop this lifestyle switch where you can actually do what you want to do. And the massages for me have been so huge because it's like preventative wellness. Whereas in the US, you can get sucked into the trap of like, I'm not going to pay $150 for a massage. I'm not going to go to do reflexology. That's like that would be a luxurious nice to have. But instead, we get sick, we have a disease, and then we have to go through insurance, we have to go to the hospital, we need to get prescriptions. And so here it makes it able to justify, I'm going to go spend how much on a massage? Like,
So this morning,
depends.
to give people an idea, at our villa, we had people come to our villa. We did a couples massage. We each did 90 minutes. I did a 90-minute deep tissue. Paige did like a 60-minute full body and then a 30-minute body scrub. It was about $17 per person
Yeah.
for 90 minutes
Yeah.
to come to us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been averaging, I would say, a massage per week our whole time in Asia
Right.
because of that.
And it makes me happy because that in the US is so like, oh, I wish. So luxe. But it's like, this is the wellness kind of modalities that I believe in deeper that you can actually do. And I've seen a difference in my health, and it's preventative, like stress reduction, that is feasible to do too. Another piece I want to talk about lifestyle is the affordability to rent, like say a spot on top of renting another spot. For example, on my birthday, we did a group trip and rented a villa. And just talking about that experience to someone who's not a digital nomad seems so wild. Like, oh, look at this villa with a pool and with.
Well, I think by saying villa, you're not quite telling everybody what it is. So it was in the middle of the week on a Wednesday,
Yeah.
or Thursday, sorry, your birthday. And also for some friends were leaving. So we knew this couple. We didn't know anybody else. 10 people in this mega villa
Yeah,
with
mega.
everybody had their own kind of bungalow. There was pool. There was a whole paddle court. There's this epic kitchen. There's a gym.
Fire pit.
Yeah, multiple pools, actually, fire pit.
Sunken couch, like around the pool, outside.
And I think it came out to like $35 or
Yeah.
something.
And so that's a lifestyle piece too of like, you can do these get togethers with friends. Like maybe you don't have the place to host, but you can easily go somewhere. In the US, I don't think you can get a hotel for less than $100.
Yeah, $150 or something,
a
depending on where you're
night
going.
that's not that you wouldn't hang out with in a group of 10 people. So I think that in itself too it's hard to have that contrast. You get used to your lifestyle in some place of what could be, and then to go back to be like, okay, if we want to spend $150 for one night, we can get a motel for us too to do a little getaway. So that changes.
For sure. And then the last thing, I would say the last big topic for us is walkability. So this is the other probably biggest negative, I would say, for us within Southeast Asia. It really is, you're going to scooter everywhere. Now, it's a little bit different depending on your destination. And if you're really, really careful about choosing where you live, maybe you can walk a little bit more. So for example, in Chiang Mai, we were able to walk to a couple spots in our neighborhood. Koh Phangan, actually, we only rented scooters occasionally on weekends. We could walk to the gym, to the beach, to the co-work, to restaurants. Here, we really can't walk anywhere.
Could you explain what a scooter is? Because I've talked to a lot of Americans and they're like, a scooter is what? A scooter
motorcycle,
is...
we're talking about, which are more than cars in most of the places in Asia.
Yeah.
And so it's obviously less safe. I mean, and especially in Koh Phangan, I mean, you'd see everybody with bandages and stuff on because they're constantly getting in these little motorcycle accidents. So I don't love, like, the scooter's a love-hate. Sometimes it's really fun. You get on a back road, nobody's there, and it's this beautiful, like, cliff or jungle, and it's really fun. But also, it's kind of in your mind the whole time of very, very not safe overall. But we're just people that love to be able to walk in our routine. And when you're a digital nomad, you kind of get to see what you love in living in places. And whenever you get to Europe, I mean, that's such a stark difference in living in the US. You get to walk everywhere. That's one of my favorite things. So not being able to walk to the co-work, to the beach, all that stuff, like here in Bali, you know, you can see this giant difference of my steps. Like, my steps have been cut in half more from Thailand, because in Thailand I was able to walk to different spots, which, again, that place we had in Thailand, very, very rare. Most people in Koh Phangan don't have that same experience. So the walkability, I would say, is the other pretty big negative. That's probably the biggest negative for me.
Yeah. It's interesting with walking because I think especially right now, everywhere in the world, there's this goal of 10K steps a day. But in a lot of places, it's so weird to walk to your pharmacy or to your cafe. It's very odd. Like, even in my hometown, not far from Boston, I remember after Europe, I was like, oh, I'm going to go walk to the pharmacy. I had to pick something up. It was not that far, but just me walking there, I got so many stares of like, did this girl's car break down? Does she need a ride? What's wrong? Did she get dropped off? Like, these are all the questions that probably was happening. I was just trying to get my 10K steps in a way that was natural, you know? And so it's funny because we have the idea around 10K steps, but in terms of how we do it, it makes sense to weave it into our lifestyle. For me, it feels the best. But a lot of people, I think, work a 9 to 5. They go and get on a treadmill and then they put their Fitbit on like 10K steps, or I got to go do my 10K steps after my workday. And for our lifestyle, I think, especially living in Europe, especially certain cities in the US too, that have sometimes it's built too for walkability. And you're right, here in Southeast Asia, it's not. And the bike is the common way to go. And it really decreases your steps, and you have to try that much harder to get them in separately.
The last thing I would say in general that is nice about Asia, and kind of maybe goes back to the quality of life point, but it just popped into my head, is like Grab or Uber. So it's like their Uber Eats or getting around. You can get what is there. Uber's Grab is the most popular. Gojek here in Bali. So you can get on the back of a bike and go anywhere, because Paige hasn't drove the scooter, the motorcycle yet. And so in Chiang Mai and here in Bali, it's really easy to just get a Grab. They're here in like a couple minutes. It's a couple dollars to go anywhere. Same thing to get food delivered, right? In the US, I feel like Uber Eats is such a luxury. Like, it costs the amount, just the delivery probably costs the amount of the whole meal and delivery here in Bali.
Yeah.
You know, it's $1, maybe $2 to get a lot of food delivered here.
And I think that's the powerful part about Gojek or Grab here, is getting on the back of the bike. And like, I'll take those around. If I'm not going with you on the bike, it's like $1 USD to like $5 USD, depending on where you're going. But like, very, very affordable. And so that piece too is non-existent in the US. If you want to take an Uber anywhere, I remember we used to use that in Boston. You're paying like, no matter how far you go, at least $30.
Yeah.
And I think just the concept of getting on the back of the bike, I think you said it so casually. I was laughing because because we're here, it's normal. But the idea of just getting on the back of someone's motorcycle is very, 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 very Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I remember when my dad visited us in Chiang Mai, and my goal was like, okay, let's get him on the back of the bike like as soon as possible. So I rode him around, and the first time he was like, "Oh no," but I like forced him to do it, and so he didn't think about it too much, but he didn't love it. And then by the end, he was ordering grabs by himself. He's like, "I'll meet you guys there. I'm on the back of the bike."
It was a shock to me. That was one of the
mm,
harder things when I first got to Chiang Mai. I talked about it in that episode a few months back, was you just feel so much stimulus because every single sense is being engaged on a bike. On a car, it's not like that. You have like doors. So it's exhilarating because you're taking everything, literally taking everything all in. But it's also quite overstimulating too. It can be if
yeah,
you're
for
not
sure.
used to it.
Well, let's then pivot into the actual destinations that we went to. So we're gonna do maybe a single little sentence that we can describe it by, and then you can break it down, and then do maybe best and worst parts for each of us. So let's start with Chiang Mai. Paige, how would you describe Chiang Mai and why?
Yeah, for me, Chiang Mai was my first time in Asia. And I feel the first thing that I come to mind is coffee shops and also like the local experience. I feel you could feel the culture a lot, but you also did have a bit of familiarity of things that you kind of reminded you of where you're from. For example, for me, coffee shops. I feel if I went to one, you could still feel the culture of being in Thailand, but also you have a little bit of that familiarity too. Um, yeah, that is the first thing that comes to mind. Also, just like it's a city, so all of the different cuisine options, the markets, a lot of night markets. Um, yeah, that's what first comes to mind.
For me, Chiang Mai is kind of two things. It's easy living, and it's a perfect intro to Asia,
Yeah.
Southeast Asia.
Mm.
For you, it was again, this was your first time in Asia. This is the first destination. I think that was perfect, where you definitely got the culture shock, but maybe a little bit more eased into it and than other places.
Mm.
As well as Chiang Mai, you can actually feel the culture. Some
Yeah.
other destinations where we'll get to, you don't necessarily feel the culture of that place as much. So I think that's also a beautiful thing
Yeah.
of that. And again, all three are nomad hubs. Chiang Mai, for anybody that doesn't know, was kind of the original digital nomad hub like 10 plus years ago. And it still is to this day, just such an easy, beautiful place to live. It's a city, but you can go to different neighborhoods where it doesn't feel too crowded. Tons of cafes, temples, and massage places pretty much
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Very, very, very affordable, easy to get around with all the grabs, everything
Mm.
like that. Tons of day trips. You can get out to the jungle, to the mountains. You can go see the elephants.
I think another thing is that the locals are so intertwined into the nomad experience, which I think can be really rare for nomad hubs. Like nomads come in and take over, and I don't always love going to those spots, but something I noticed right away is there's also a lot of nomads that are Thai. And I met a lot of Thai people as well that were like locals. You don't feel like it's just a hub of international people. So that's one of the things I really loved. Reflecting back, it just came to me of like both exist there.
Any other best parts, favorite parts about Chiang Mai?
What comes to mind for me is my juice shop that I would go to. So I was sick in Chiang Mai with a cold, but in the US, I would go to the pharmacy, find like Dayquil or something. But there I was like, okay, surely some local Thai can cure me with something. So I went to the juice shop and I told him I have a cold. And he was like, sit down, no worries. Like, I will serve you. Um, yeah, I ordered like a fruit bowl and he came out with a fruit bowl and a half, like every fruit with every reason why for each fruit, with a ginger turmeric shot, with a coconut water. And he was like, this will cure you. And just, I sat there for hours and he came back like, how are you feeling? How did that feel? And yeah, it was just a moment I'll really remember for a long time because, yeah, it's like you can feel so vulnerable or so homesick when you're sick in another country. And there it was just, how can I let myself be open to, yeah, a local showing me how they would take care of themselves there. And it just was such a beautiful example of trusting a local experience and that most people are good. Like they want to help you. And I felt that so much in Chiang Mai of every single person felt so pure.
Hmm. I would say my favorite part, just the living. Like you can go anywhere. You don't have to think about how much something costs necessarily. You can explore a lot. There's so much to explore, especially if you're a foodie, you want to do cafes. Um, you're not feeling like going out one night. You do a grab for food. Co-working spaces galore. We were going to like a wellness spot in the middle of the city.
Khao Soi.
Khao Soi. So just just the day-to-day living. And then on the flip side, I would say the worst part for me, we're just not in the city mode recently. So even though it is more spread out, sometimes it would just get a little bit too chaotic for me.
Yeah.
And especially like the loudness. I mean, we were in a more quiet area, but it was still somewhat close like to the highway.
Yeah.
And I don't know, sometimes when it's not fully quiet, I'm not able to relax. I'm not able to de-stress as well. And so that was probably one of the biggest things is like the noise and made it hard for my tranquility.
I agree. I want to add, because you stayed in Chiang Mai, I actually went to Pai. So I want to share that Pai was in northern Thailand. I took a bus there through the mountains, and Pai is somewhere I definitely would return to personally. And I was experiencing very similar to you, like I need to get out of the city. And every single person I met told me, you need to go to Pai. So that trip was really, really special. And I feel that was like a hippie mountain town type of vibe for sure. There's a river that runs through the whole area of Pai. Lots of yoga, slower pace, slower, way more nature. So I feel if the idea of mainland Thailand excites you, you don't necessarily want to only do an island, I really recommend checking out Pai.
Let's pivot now to our next destination where we decided to stay 2 months, which was Koh Phangan, Thailand. So an island in Thailand. How do you kind of describe it in your one sentence or something and then expand on it for us?
Paradise on earth. And I'm not the only one who has said this. Multiple people are like, you've been, it's paradise on earth. It, to me, feels like life maybe 20 years ago. Simple living, simple island living without all the bells and whistles. And it brings in a lot of just really down to earth people looking to connect and to heal and to be.
I like to describe it as like rough around the edges, but a beautiful center. And the thing that Koh Phangan really, it kind of asks the question or begs the question is, what do you need versus what do you want? So I kind of described a little bit of our day-to-day life. We were able, again, unique, but for us, we were able to find a spot where we could walk everywhere. On the weekends, we'd go explore. Comparing it to Bali, our place was very, very basic. We had some problems actually with our place. We had some ant infestations in our bed, which we never really got
Fire
into.
ants.
Yeah. It's just the buildings and everything, not necessarily like super the highest of quality. Little things here and there. Like if you compare it to Bali just looks a lot prettier on the outside.
The architecture, different. Really, really different.
Right. But it just has everything that, at least for me, that I love in a place. Again, it had the walkability. Again, that is unique to our experience, I would say. It had the affordability. It had the very simple, beautiful life that's one of the best co-working spaces I've ever been to, not because of its amenities, but because literally on the beach, like I was looking at the ocean the whole time. If I need a break, we would go do a swim after lunch, we'd go walk to places for lunch, do a sunset walk to end the day. Such a simple life. And that was my favorite part of it, is just the day-to-day routine was absolutely insane.
Yeah. I think also just knowing what you like in a place. And for so many people, you don't know until you try. But I think we learned even more of like, for me, which we'll get into, like I always have had Bali on my dream list of like, oh my God, I'm going to love it. It's going to be amazing. And then once you're here, you learn even more about yourself of like expectations versus reality, what you like in a place. Are you a city person? Are you an island person? Maybe you think you like simple living until you're tested with ants. And that's also part of simple living and island life. And if you're in island life, the other things are also true. And so maybe you think you like that, but then actually you get to Bali and you're in a luxe villa and you have all these other amenities that you thought maybe you don't like, but you're like, hey, you know what? It's actually really nice to order all my groceries. It's really nice to have all of these amenities that you thought you didn't like, but then you don't have them and then you miss them. So I think travel teaches you so much about yourself, and what you think you might know, you might realize you don't actually want or like or value as much, which I feel I felt so much with how much I loved Koh Phangan versus other parts that it's like, oh, I love a nice place, but how much I loved my time there without maybe that really nice place. It's like, well, do I? It makes you question that and what actually matters.
So best and worst parts of Koh Phangan for you?
Yeah. For me, it's the accessibility to the beach. And with the accessibility to the beach, this comes walking all day on there, work breaks on the beach, easy to get there. You can walk, you can swim, you can spend a whole day there. You don't have to pay to get in. Like the barriers, it's just opened. You can hang out, you can meet people on there. So the beach for all activities. The worst part, yeah, I would say it's to our part about like a little bit of the rough around the edges. I don't know if there's something specific, but you do start to miss like, oh, it could be kind of nice to have this. It could be kind of nice to have this. The things that you think you don't really need, but then after 2 months, it's like, okay, it'd be nice to not see some ants every night before I go to sleep. It'd be nice to, yeah, be able to, I don't know, if we wanted, order from Grab. I mean, I guess you could there, but it's less of a thing. So I would say the rough around the edges part.
Yeah, I'll be more specific with the accommodation. Was it for me like in Koh Phangan, especially directly comparing it to Bali, like we were talking about? There's just a lot limited accommodation options, and so it's a lot harder to find something nice. And if you do, it's a lot pricier. So what you get for the money basically is a lot lower quality. So we got a really, really good deal, amazing location, and that's why we decided to extend there and not leave, even though we had some major problems. But it was very, very simple. I didn't necessarily, love coming home and kind of being in
Yeah.
our home. We're more here in Bali. I enjoy coming back to our space.
I think that's another good point too, is like how much time are you planning to spend in your place? Some people come to Bali, I think, and I'm just like living in my home and I'm spending every day in my home because that feels so good.
Yeah, but I think when you're nomading, you're doing it for at least a month. I think it's always on the mind,
Yeah.
right? If you're here for a vacation, I think that's a good point. But if you are nomading, you're going to be living there. You're always going to be at your home a bit more. Even the person that's always out and about,
Yeah.
I think it still matters, right? So to me, that would be the biggest negative about Koh Phangan. And so now let's start with Bali, where we are now.
Did you say you're positive?
Yes, the routine and everything like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Bali, just such as to set the stage, excuse me, we are in Uluwatu. So it's like the south, kind of almost its own little part of Bali. And there's three main parts. There's Uluwatu, there's Canggu, and there's Ubud. They're each a different feel. Last time I was in Bali, I did a month in Canggu, a week in Uluwatu. We did the 5 weeks here in Uluwatu. This time, a day trip pretty much in Canggu, and you did about 10 days in Ubud. And so we'll mostly be talking about Uluwatu, but maybe if you feel called to talk about Ubud or something, a little bit of the differences, we can. But how I think about Bali as a whole, and it's really epitomized here in Uluwatu, is it's almost the opposite of how I describe Thailand. It's model-like, where it's beautiful on the outside. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. The nature, the architecture, the villas. It's set up for Instagram, but also like a model, when you meet them, sometimes they're a bit empty inside. And of course, not always. Like we've interviewed some amazing people here on the Dirt Path already. Some people I've really connected with, gotten deep with, but it can feel a bit more materialistic. Here, it can feel a bit more performative. Is really the word that I use for Bali. Where in Thailand you kind of show up as you are, I feel, and here in Uluwatu, especially where Bali's known for the influencers. Uluwatu, and for me it's always dictated by your experience, right? And I don't help myself by going to, it's the bamboo gym, so it's the most known gym maybe in all of Bali, definitely Uluwatu, for fitness influencers. So you're looking at people that just don't look real. Some people are quite fake actually when you see them in person compared to how they show themselves online,
or they're actually not real.
Yes, that's what I'm kind of getting to. Some people I'm sure are very nice when you talk to them, but there's a different aura. And like I said, it does feel a lot of times more performative.
Yeah.
And that you have to kind of look a certain part and everything here. So that's my general, how I describe Bali.
Yeah. I would say I feel such a huge difference from Uluwatu to Ubud, because in Ubud I didn't feel that, and that was a big reason why I felt pulled there, because I'm like, there is this soul part of Bali, this down-to-earth part that I know exists, so where is it? And that was in Ubud for me, for sure. Yeah, Uluwatu has the ocean. It has also just more, I would say, entrepreneurs and more of like this faster pace, this health and wellness that Ubud was more of like spirituality, and then this is more of like gym and fitness and sports.
How I describe it, just because you haven't spent as much time in Canggu like I did last time, is Canggu is more of like the fast-paced entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Uluwatu, so it's like kind of like the mind. Uluwatu, I think about as like the body, so it's all about health and wellness and almost a subsection of appearance and body.
Yeah.
And Ubud is more soul, spirituality. I think those are the biggest differences of how I kind of talk about each one.
Yeah. And so I guess to this, playing on this analogy, the body, I think it's really hyperfixated on here, so much so that people really identify with their body. For better or for worse, I mean, people are so health oriented, which is awesome. You go to that gym, you're around all of these fitness influencers, people really care. It's not the worst trade in the world. But with that, there's this hyper fixation I've seen here on appearance. And then sometimes that can lack that soul element that I think we're both have felt. But it's just interesting for me because I've really seen how I've evolved here, because I can see me even a year ago, 2 years ago, loving it here, like so much loving it here. And then it's just as you evolve, you realize, okay, wow, this is what I really wanted, but it's quite Instagram-y. And when you see beyond that, it's like, what does it really have? And what are these people really connecting on? It's like you run into another Instagram influencer and it's like, oh, I know you because you also post about this and you also post about this. And it's like, what is that depth and that substance to them as well? But with that, I also think here has all of the things that we have said we wanted, which is interesting. I'm still wrapping my head around my final thoughts on here. Because, yeah, it does have all these cafes. Yeah, there's a ton of digital nomads. There's a lot of young people who are motivated, but also balanced. They surf in the middle of the day. They take a yoga break in the middle of the day. They work from that gym. And so it does have what we say we wanted, but it's missing some of those things that we talked about that we did really love about Thailand. So it's that balance.
So what would you say are your best and worst parts about Bali for you?
Worst, I would say I don't know. A little bit of the lack of, in Uluwatu, I'll say, a little bit of the lack of depth or soul. Also, I will go back to the time zone for me. I feel I'm living two different worlds. It's hard to integrate my travel and back in the US. I feel right now I'm feeling a bit disconnected from that version of me. I feel it's a really beautiful spot, in my opinion, to come here to kind of separate for a little if that's your intention, but that's not necessarily my intention right now to like escape or to have a break. It's more of like, I don't want to. So I think the time zone piece mixed with that.
Because Bali's an extra hour on the time zones than Thailand, just to give everybody some context as
Yes.
well.
So you're kind of living two worlds. And for me, that can be kind of tiring. Like I'm building a business with a lot of clients I'm serving and people I'm writing for. It's everyone, but it's a lot of them are in the US. My family's in the US, but I'm here. So I think that's been a hard part and a negative for me of Bali.
And your favorite part?
My favorite part, I would say the lifestyle piece. I think that in the US, we have this American dream. We have this one day, if I work hard enough, I will have this freedom to live how I want, spend how I want, take out my family and friends for a meal and not think about it. And the truth is here in Bali, people are living that way already without waiting your whole life to have maybe one day, someday get to that point. When you pick your location and you're working as a nomad here from a country where you are earning maybe USD, you're living that lifestyle that we put up into like maybe one day, you're living that now. So for sure the lifestyle, and I'm grateful to be able to be a founder of a company that's based in the US, to be born in the US, because I know that's such a privilege to even say the lifestyle piece. So with the awareness of the privilege, I would say the lifestyle. Yeah.
I would match that for my best. Yeah, it's like, it is what you think about with the dream lifestyle, right? So I go to this crazy cool gym. I mean, it is crazy beautiful. Like for people who love workout classes, there's 50, 60 people in a CrossFit class, high rocks class, all these different types of classes. There's open gym, which is really nice, all state-of-the-art equipment. There's a huge recovery area with a pool, with a super nice sauna, 3 different types of cold plunges. You can, stay in the sun. You can go to this cafe with, actually for not that bad of a price, super, super healthy food, get exactly what you want.
Electrolyte drinks, anything you need. It's like you're there.
Fresh coconuts.
People work there all day by the pool.
Yeah, a little co-working spot, or you can be by the pool.
Yeah.
So, I'll go play paddle a few times a week. There's tons of paddle places around here. If you love to surf, especially. The restaurants, or when we were talking about the restaurants last night and the different types of cuisines. I mean, we've had Georgian food, Uzbekistan food, Turkish food. What did we have? Like Mediterranean food from Cyprus, right? So all these different types of cuisines. And the Western food, I would say that's something about Thailand is like, especially in Koh Phangan, there was a big difference of local food, which I love local Thai food. I think better than local Balinese food. But there was quite a big difference between that and the Western food. Not to say that there's not a difference, but I think it's a lot smaller. Like you can go to some Western food spots and it's ridiculously cheap here as well. So just that dream lifestyle, again, in the accommodation, like the accommodation here is actually insane with, we've got a jungle here that we wake up to the view of. It's quiet, that we found. Again, this is a little bit of a hidden gem though. So that's my favorite part. The least favorite part for me is it just doesn't feel like my place. Kind of what we talked about, the performative part. And again, I think a little bit of that is in my mind and what I see and just my experience. But both times I've been to Bali, I've felt this a little bit where it's a little bit cliquey and I don't quite fit in, sometimes.
It's a bit facey. That's a good word I will use. Like you want to be seen and you have to be someone in a way. Maybe if you're listening and you've been to LA, maybe like that. A little bit LA vibes, but just here in Bali. So the lifestyle is even more extravagant because you can afford it. So it's a little flexy. It's a little facey.
Yeah. So with all of that, why don't we look into the destinations and maybe give your ranking personally for which, what's your ranking for the 3 destinations that we went to, and why?
Well, I'm, I'm also going to add pie. So I would say Copenhagen,
Is number 1, the top.
number 1. Copenhagen, Ubud, Uluwatu. This is in real time. This might change. Pai, Chiang Mai. Personally.
And would you return to all of them?
Yeah, why not?
Is there one that is there a difference between Koh Phangan and the rest for you? Like if we were going to do, because we're starting to slow down and everything, right? And this trip is a little bit different, how we did mostly 1 month.
Yeah, I would return to Copenhagen for sure. Maybe in time, I actually would switch Uluwatu below Chiang Mai just because I see this becoming even more busy. I think if I feel the way I do right now about Uluwatu now, kind of maybe how you feel with Canggu, like not even really worth going back there because it's gotten so busy. I could see Uluwatu in a year from now being like, oh, I'd rather actually go back to Chiang Mai before I come here because I think it's just on the up of the negative parts for us being just enhanced even more. So that's my ranking.
I'll go number 3, just Bali in general. A lot what we talked about. I also like what you talked about, which we kind of skipped over. It is just a lot busier than Koh Phangan, which leads it to better food and all of that stuff. More co-working options, more cafe options.
Well, actually, maybe I should say Copenhagen is last because once this episode reaches everyone, then we're going to be hoping we didn't say this.
But so for some people, I think that's why it might be number 1. For me, we're becoming like old people who just want to be in quiet spots and have it be quite chill. So it's a bit much for me, I would say.
I wouldn't say old people that need fully quiet. I would say we need like down to earth people too.
I'm just going to say I'm old. So
I'm going to say I'm not. Don't like this title.
But that's number 3 for me is Bali. I do think, again, this is just my experience this time. There's a part of me that's like, oh, I want to give it another chance. There's other parts about Bali. I mean, it's a huge island that I would love to explore. I think there's always going to be a part that, it's rapidly changing, that you can find your place in Bali. Like we've heard a lot of Ahmed, this quiet little beach town. But it is number 3 for me. And then I would say Chiang Mai, number 2. The reason I would put it above Bali is I would say more of our friends tend to be in Chiang Mai more than Bali. So that was the primary reason that we went there, is for different community and friends that we have. And so I think it's more likely that I return there to do a similar trip like that. And then number 1 is Koh Phangan. It's a place that I could go back to for 2-3 months. I don't know if I could do much longer than that because it does start to feel pretty small by the end. But just the simplicity and the beauty in life, especially if we're in a building phase of businesses and things like that, that would be my number 1.
Especially if you're listening and you are building a villa in Copenhagen that we would like, let us know. Because accommodation, if we have a good accommodation, that's it.
It doesn't make a big difference.
So who knows? Now it's out into the universe. Just wait.
Well, we are wrapping up here with our 4 to 5 months in Asia. Paige, what is the biggest thing that you're going to miss about Asia in general before going back to the US?
Yeah. I'm going to miss I feel it's really easy to be yourself here. I felt this really a lot in Copenhagen. That's why I loved it. I think you can slow down. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's islands in general is such a feminine energy. It allows you to actually be more and feel good about being more connected to nature, the culture here, the energy here because of the culture here. So I think the biggest test for me is how can I stay in this beingness, this feminine energy, not getting swept up into the hustle and bustle and busyness that sometimes you do when you go back to the US, especially the East Coast. So I'm excited because we chose Maine in the US for a reason that it's slower than Boston or New York City. So I hope that we don't feel that, but it's collective energy that you feel when you're in an environment. So I think overall, there's this beautiful pace and way of being that is really unique to Southeast Asia, where it allows you kind of be yourself and to live every day how you really want to and slow down.
For me, it's with where I am in life, just starting my new business. I'm still trying to get to a point where it's sustainable. That's a lot easier to do when your expenses are so much lower in general here in Asia, as well as like that quality of life. It's going to be quite a stark difference in our day-to-day life going back to the US than it is here in Asia. And there's going to be a lot of a different pressure, I think, because of the day-to-day costs of being in the US compared to here in Asia. So we'll see how it goes. And we'll be talking about where we're going to be in the US, why we're going back to the US, all of that on a future Dirt Path episode. So I hope everybody got something. Maybe you're going to one of these destinations. Maybe you've been to one and you wanted to see what we said about it. Let us know if you've been to one, which was your favorite, or what you thought about it, if we were spot on, if we got something totally wrong. And make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss the next episode where we, again, are in our next spot of living. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm glad we recorded this because I've had people ask, like, what should I do in Bali? Bali versus Thailand. And I think it's a good overall consensus because you see the photos, but you don't see kind of this behind the scenes. So I'm glad.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. See you next time here on the Dirt Path.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Dirt Path podcast. You can find any links to support or follow today's Trailblazer in the description below. If you got this far and really liked today's episode, it would mean a lot if you could give us a 5 stars wherever you found this podcast. Subscribe and like on YouTube. And email us. Email us at thedirtpathpodcast@gmail.com to give us feedback, to give us an update of you on your own dirt path, or to send us questions, as we might be doing some Q&A episodes in the future. All right. We'll see you next time here on the Dirt Path.
Saw the exit sign flash by, a whisper in the breeze. Said take a chance, don't wonder why, just follow where it leads. Oh, the dirt path, it ain't easy, no map to guide the way. Slow and hard, sometimes uneasy, you stumble through the clay. No signs to tell you where you're bound, no traffic to obey. But every step on broken ground builds something great someday.